this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. We are here for an Ask the Expert segment today, and we have Jessica Tomac with us, and we're going to learn about the financial aspect of business. Welcome, Jessica. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be part of your show today.
Absolutely. So would you introduce yourself for the audience?
Yes, so my name, again, Jessica Tomac. I work with Edward Jones as a financial advisor, and I've built my practice on helping women and entrepreneurs know what their money is doing for them today, what they can expect from it in the future, and how to really create financial security.
Oh, I love all of that. So tell us more. How did you get into this, and where did that passion derive from for you?
Yeah, so it started probably as a child seeing my parents struggle. They were young parents and they lived paycheck to paycheck, had some bankruptcy, so not an easy life. And I just knew that I wanted to do things different. So I had, after college, sought out a couple of different financial advisors, looking for guidance. I didn't have the right credentials, apparently, to get advice from them. And so when I would ask questions, they either wouldn't respond and didn't feel like it was working. So I ended up firing 5 financial advisors over the course of probably 10, 15 years. And then finally decided, well, I should become one, because there's people like me who want to learn about investing. They want to learn about creating wealth and financial security. And there's not a safe space to do that. So that's how I got into the business, and kind of what drives me is making sure that I'm providing some guidance and just a place that if it's financial coaching, they can come to me and get some, here's your next step. Or if it's wealth building, here's some strategies.
I love how you took matters into your own hands, and I can definitely relate to that when you're not necessarily getting the answers that you're looking for or the experience that maybe you had anticipated, that you really made it happen for yourself. So once you made that decision that this was going to be a career choice, tell us more about that particular climb and how you got to the work that you're doing right now and where you're doing it.
Yeah, so it was an interesting journey. So I have made it also a plan of mine to continue my education. So there's a lot of financial advisors who don't have a college education, or they only have some minimum securities licenses. So every few years I go and get another designation to make sure that I'm honing in on my skills and my skill set. So how I started my business, literally, I went into the community and was like, I'm going to make a difference right here where I live and work. So I knocked on doors, I introduced myself to people, I offered free advice, and literally built my business this way. So it was amazing. And now really it's based on referrals. I have clients in all over the US, and it really has catapulted making sure that people say, hey, you have to talk to my girl, right? And I've been at the grocery store before and someone's yelling, hey, money lady, which is kind of funny. So,
wow. So you started with the basics and going directly to the source, building those relationships, I'm sure building that trust factor, and then it took off from there. And I'm assuming that you're also, when you're focusing directly on the source, I'm sure that the information that you're gathering and those relationships can become so solid that it takes off from there. I'm assuming that's something that took some time and some patience on your part. So can you talk a little bit about that early period of time where you were kind of building that business and how you persevered in times of challenge, if there were any you can think of?
Yeah, so through a mentor, they were like, hey, if you want to be successful, you need to talk to 25 people a day. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, great. Well, I'm a mom who's the sole provider for my family. If 25 makes you successful, and they would keep saying, oh, it's going to take you 5 years. I thought, well, I ain't got 5 years. So I need to do this faster. And so if they said 25 makes you successful, 50 would make you really successful. And in my mind, it would cut my time in half. Well, it really
Mm,
does, right? So the more people you could go out and introduce yourself to, and so it was a lot of just grinding. I mean, I worked really long hours. There were times I definitely wouldn't recommend this, but it was for a season, and I knew that. But
yeah.
my kids, I learned later, thought that I was sleeping at work because they would be asleep when I left in the morning, and they were asleep when I got home. So there were days that I literally didn't see them, but I knew it was for a season that I needed to do this. And so I would knock on doors from 10 o'clock was my start time because I felt like no one wanted someone at their door before 10 a.m. And I would knock during the summer until it got dark about 8:30 at night. And only after I was doing this for, I don't know, probably 6, 8 months did I would run home and have dinner with the family quick
Hmm.
and then back out. So, and then I would come home and I would handwrite thank you notes to folks that I met, right? And I really felt like you had to be different. And when people come in, even to this day, to see me, they say it's different with you. Right. Well, it's different because I'm not trying to pound something down your throat. I'm not trying to put my agenda before yours. I'm really trying to understand what is it you want to do, and then what's the baby step we can take to make you feel like you're making progress
Hmm.
and not overwhelmed.
So there is definitely a personal touch there for sure. A period of time where really investing and building this business kind of was the overarching theme, but you knew it was going to be a temporary period of time. So you talked about how early on you maybe had an experience growing up that you wanted to try to avoid if you could. But what else has been driving this perseverance and this build for you? I'm assuming the results that your clients are getting. What else would you say?
Yeah, I think it's a few things, right? It's changing your family legacy,
Hmm.
right? And knowing that you're able to do things for your kids that your parents weren't able to do for you, right? And it's bigger than you and your family. It's about this philanthropic ability to go be impactful to others. Because you can, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's it. That's so rewarding to be able to give to causes that you're passionate about, things that have impacted your life, and really help be a change maker in the community and, in the world.
Okay. So those listeners are likely to be those considering starting their own business. They might be in the early stages, or they may have been in business for a while, but are really looking to find maybe some more information, some guidance. So those individuals that tend to seek you out or who you would encourage do so. Tell us more about that person and what the process looks like in working with you and your firm.
Yeah, so there are a couple of different tracks of people who seek me out, right? Some are those entrepreneurs that are just starting out. They want to make sure that they have some financial security. We pour a lot into our business when we're starting it, and that's great, but you better make sure you've got that $1,000 in the bank for an emergency fund too, and not stretching yourself to the point that your health is, going to be compromised, and really understanding what your limits are. So those folks that just want to have a person that says, okay, here's what I've done. What's my next step? What's my one piece, right? Don't give me 10 because I'm going to do zero. But if you can coach me on one thing, then I'll go do that. And then I'll get back in touch with you after I've done that one thing, or once I think I'm getting close to that one thing and get my next one thing. So those folks use me as a resource. We also have the folks that are more concrete in their business, and they're really feeling like, hey, as a business owner, you pay a lot in taxes.
Hmm.
And there are things that you can do to reduce your tax burden. So that partnership also is someone that would really benefit from having some conversations in addition to their CPA. So I work with a lot of CPAs, but often CPAs are thinking about one piece of the tax puzzle, not some other things that are also helping you save for retirement or buying that vacation home or whatever that looks like as well as other goals.
Okay. So what would you say are some steps that anyone could follow to work toward a life of financial freedom?
Yeah. So I think there's some basic, kind of one, two, threes that really prepare you for getting into financial security. One is eliminating your debt. So I mentioned earlier that $1,000 in the emergency fund is critical as you're paying down debt. After your debt is paid down, and there's a couple of different ways to attack your debt, but once that debt is paid down, then it's about having a true emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in cash in the bank. And then once you've done that, then we get into what those other goals are, putting into your business, tax efficiencies, retirement, maybe you have kids that you want to save for college, those avenues.
Mm-hmm. So do you follow any particular, like this sounds similar, I follow Dave Ramsey for a lot of my life and his baby steps. So is that something that you also follow? Have you kind of broadened that scope as you've been doing your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I taught Financial Peace University for several years. It started with me doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I did it. So
Yes.
when I was in college, I was the super smart kid that got a bunch of different credit cards because they would offer you all these credit cards at 0% interest and zero payments. And then I would just take it from that one and transfer it to the next. So I was never paying off credit cards. So one year, my girlfriend and I was like, I have to stop doing this. And she's like, yeah. And she was a big spender. And so we decided we're done with this. We're gonna change. So we took all of the credit cards, we poked little hole punch in each credit card, and we decorated our Christmas tree with credit cards. Like we had that many. It was a small tree, but still,
Yes.
that was our Christmas tree decoration. And so I saw how not easy, right? It took discipline, it took work to go on a budget and then stick to that budget. But I saw the effects and I saw how impactful it was. I've also walked lots of people through the process, and while they might not always like me, in the end they love me when they stick to it, right? Because before I hopped on this call, had a client who said, oh, I didn't want to call you, and apparently he told his wife, you call her, and she was like, I don't want to call her, because they were going to do something financially that they knew I was going to be like, what are you guys doing, right? And so just being able to have that dialogue with somebody and walking through, hey, if you do this, it's not that you can't, but what's the financial impact? It's not emotional, right? And so taking that emotion out of it and really having a lens of, is it this important? And what does it mean?
The piece that you just spoke to is so important, and why I would encourage everyone to have that point person. And I'd like to talk about how we can kind of diversify a little bit as we go on in business. And I have an understanding of that more now. But that piece of, it is really challenging for us, let's say, as the business owner, to make all of those decisions in isolation, because it is really hard for us to separate the emotion. And we're not always operating from this place of the future orientation that you're speaking to. What are the potential consequences and repercussions? And we're not always going to know all of those, especially if we're early in business or if this is our first venture. So I think building that relationship with someone, and obviously these individuals know you well and they have an idea of what you would say and how you would guide them, but they don't necessarily know until they speak to you about how that conversation is going to play out. And now they have more food for thought, more information, so that they can then ultimately have that moment to clarify before they move forward and just operate off of that emotion. Can you speak to that piece at all?
Yeah, and I think that's huge, right? Because in that example I just gave, they were thinking, well, even if we're paying higher interest rates today, we can refinance in 3 years and there'll be less. And I'm like, I don't know where you're getting your information, but that's not going to happen. Like, look at the mortgage interest rate cycle, and we are on the uptick, and we will be for several years. And they're like, you can't be an expert in everything.
No.
And when I talk to ladies and when I partner partner with men and women, it's about building your tribe, right? And this tribe is so important. You have to have somebody who's an expert in finances and money and stuff. You have to have the person who's an expert in legal. You have to have, like, you build these people around you so that you can make really well informed decisions, and you don't have to learn through the school of hard knocks. Like, we've all done that as part of our own businesses, where we were like, oh, we just did this, right? And I did that. I took everybody on. I tried to help everybody. And you can't. When you go to the grocery store or you have a meeting, you're like, oh shoot, did they have kids? Did they not? You have to be focused, right? And every business owner has to figure out where their niche is, where they're going to be impactful. And I'm not for everybody. Like, I laugh and joke. People meet with financial advisors and they're stuffy and they're calm and that is not me. Like, if you can see my hands are flying, I am super excited, right? And I'm for a certain group of people, not for everybody. But you have to find who fits for your tribe.
Yes. And when you speak of that tribe, I actually learned the hard way that we can't necessarily expect this one point person that we've identified to serve all of our financial needs. And I was wondering if you can speak to that. So there's a big difference between a financial advisor, an accountant, and even a bookkeeper. Can you speak to how you may ultimately need to identify 3 different people?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I do think that a lot of folks, when they have a CPA or a tax person, they think they've got it all handled. But in some cases, the CPA or the tax person does take it to another level of service, but sometimes they don't. And they're literally just doing your taxes. So when I partner with folks that have created some wealth and have business, and we're looking at those strategies, I'm calling them and saying, hey, CPA person, if we do this, is this helpful? Hey, if we can do this, can you take a look to see how that impacts their taxes? They're not thinking about those things necessarily proactively. Now, if we can partner and I can say, hey, can you look at this? Oh yeah, let's absolutely do that. Like, literally, we save our clients thousands of dollars by simply having those relationships versus someone who's like, oh, I'm TurboTaxing, which can be great if you have basic needs, but you might be missing a bunch of things as well.
So it sounds like collaboration is also really big for you, and that you would encourage people to identify individuals who are open to that collaboration. So what are some things that you would suggest if we were to say 3 key takeaways for those listeners, action steps that they can immediately start upon stopping listening to this episode to improve their financial wellness?
Great question. So I think the key pieces for financial wellness is really that emergency fund. So, and what I find is sometimes folks don't even know what that means, as far as what I have $100 in my bank. I have an emergency fund. No, look at your living expenses. And if you're the sole provider for your home, I actually want 6 to 12 months of your living expenses in the bank. And if you are dual income coming into your home, then it can be 3 to 6. But that's really a non-negotiable. If you have debt, you can either organize that by interest rate or by balance. And I encourage folks, if you have multiple debts, put them in order of the smallest debt on the bottom, the largest one at the top, and hang it on your refrigerator. Because I assure you, every time you go to your refrigerator and it's staring you at the face, you might make different decisions throughout the day or over the weekend when you're bored and we want to shop online. So those 2 things. And then if you are a business owner, looking at protection is super important. So what would happen if you couldn't get up and go to work? How would your family, do you have disability stuff? What does that all look like from that standpoint, to make sure you could still take care of your family in the event something happened to you?
So I am assuming that last piece can be hard for some people to wrap their heads around, because it's not always an easy thing to be thinking about. But I speak from personal experience that once you do, you really do have that peace of mind, because you don't have to concern yourself with the fact that there may be this burden to have someone in your life not be prepared and have to then kind of navigate all of those things. When you've clearly identified how you want things done and what that plan is for yourself, you make it a lot easier for those in your life and for you to live every day without that kind of hanging over you. So what are some of those categories that in that third category of really being planful and prepared if something were to happen that people can pursue?
Yeah, I think a key one that everybody should have is the durable power of attorney for healthcare. This document allows you to assign someone to make your medical decisions for you in the event you can't make them for yourself. So if you obviously go to the hospital for a procedure, they have you sign this document ahead of time. But if you were in a car accident and unconscious, you will get care according to the state you live in versus maybe what your wishes are. And so back in the old days, if you were married, it was automatically your spouse. Because of HIPAA, this is no longer the case. So it is critical that you have this document in place. Most hospitals offer them free on their website. You can download it, fill it out, and have it witnessed. Witnesses should not be family members. They can be friends, colleagues, but not family members. The other document, when you think about life insurance, if you were to die, if you have kids, or if there's some legacy you're wanting to leave or some cause you want to support, looking at the low cost is term insurance. If you're in a position that you're like, hey, I want something that does more than that, then there's other avenues. But really, basic term insurance is really inexpensive, yet can provide a I used to call it oh crap coverage. If something bad happens, it's like car insurance, right? You're going to pay for it. If you don't use it, you paid and got nothing from it. But in the event you needed it, you had it, and it took care of people.
What about disability?
Yeah, and then disability, that is a more expensive benefit. But again, understanding as an entrepreneur, most folks, if they're not earning their income, they're not earning income.
Right.
And so getting something that pays them and understanding the budget, right? Because if you can really understand how much you need for your household to live, then that will help you understand how much disability coverage you need to try to get into play. And as your business grows, as your lifestyle enhances, that disability coverage is something that you also need to make sure you're reviewing, if not annually, at least every 2 years.
Okay, that's very helpful. So I'm also questioning as I'm listening to you speak, and I know you alluded a little bit to what it's like to work with you and what differentiates you maybe from someone else. What are some tips that you would give people when they've decided, okay, I see the benefit to identifying someone to help me with the financial aspect of my life, but trying to find that person that's a right fit? Because I can also speak to the fact that I myself have gone through a few, and you invest a lot in those relationships. You're sharing so much of your life. And for many of us, we have that, we're tied, our identity is tied in some way to what we're making and our income. So what are some steps that we can take and tips that you have to find the right person in the hopes of working with that person for the long haul?
Sure. That is a great question. And I really think there's a few key items that people should be looking at. I encourage folks to check into them a bit. I can't tell you the number of people in hindsight, because I didn't know, and I was just, oh, so-and-so, just going to go meet with them. And yeah, that was, and I didn't even like them when I met with them, but I thought, well, they're smarter than me. I should just do what they tell me, even though it didn't set well with me. So I think, one, you need to interview people. And if anyone that you are interviewing is offended by this, then they are not who you should be working with. Okay, you should make sure that they have their degree, that they have, I would say, a CFP designation. This certified financial planner means that they understand wealth planning, taxes, not only financial planning, retirement, but the whole gamut of things that you're going to encounter as you grow. And you might not need all of those services today, but they at least know how to do them, and they have expertise in many areas, 7 different disciplines. And then in addition to that, then it's a personality piece as well. Again, if this person doesn't have your energy, or if you're like, wow, they scared me, that's not the right fit. There are lots of financial advisors out. There's a fair amount of CFPs that are out, really making sure if they told you something and it didn't sit well with you, not because you didn't like what they said, because there's a time they can tell you something and you don't like it,
Sure.
but you know it's truth, right? So making sure they're not just the yes man as well, or yes woman.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks that come to me have been told, oh, you're fine. Oh, you have enough. What does that mean? Show me a number. And they hear for years, oh, I'm good. And yet they're going to run out of money. The person just didn't have the courage to speak truth to them and tell them, look, you're spending way too much and you better make a plan to go live with your kids. Who wants to tell somebody that? But if you don't, they can't change their behavior. So you want somebody who you can have that honest relationship with. And, just like I mentioned, the two clients is like, you call her. No, you call her. Like, because they know I'm going to be like, come on, guys, we have to walk through this. And we'll walk through it, right? And we will come up with a solution. And it might not be what they originally thought. It might not be what I originally thought, but together we'll make up a new game plan. And I think you need to make sure that the person you're working with, if you want that coach, that they're going to help coach you.
Mm-hmm. Well, a piece that you're speaking to, and I also can attest to the fact that this is something that is so important to me. It really is ultimately about those relationships. And that's where you started your journey. And it seems like you've really fostered that, because every single person's situation is unique. Every business is unique. And I fell victim to listening to others and thinking, comparison trap, that my situation should be different than what it was. And it wasn't until I really sat down and evaluated my business for what it is with someone that took the time to do the same, to realize that we need to be careful, I think, when we're listening to other people's stories, because there are so many intricacies that you learn beyond even just your profit and loss statement, but in terms of what your goals are for your business, and in terms of how you're managing your team and what got you started. And so I'm assuming that another piece would really also include someone that takes the time to really understand that and can kind of delve in a little bit deeper so they get the big picture. Mm-hmm. What would you say to that?
Absolutely. I mean, and you should be able to ask anybody you're interviewing, how many clients do you have, right? If you're one of 2,000, they're not going to know you from Adam. There's no way you can know them intimately. 2,000 people, right? So if you look at how many people are they serving, it's okay to ask those questions. It's okay to ask them, how do you get paid? What does this look like? And if they are looking at you like you have two heads and not wanting to answer, that's not who you should be working with.
Well, and one of the reasons why I'm so glad that we connected and we had you on is I am hearing definitely some integrity in terms of your value system. Can you speak a little bit more to maybe some of those values that might set you apart or make you unique in this field?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I am direct. I shoot it straight, right? When you're doing a great job, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I literally have a cowbell in the office. And when we have a great success, that cowbell is ringing, right? And so we celebrate those successes. We take a moment to be like, whew, that was good. Not forget the hard work. In addition to that, I think, being able to have super honest dialogue. Again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not the girl who says everybody gets a ribbon, everybody gets a prize. You don't, right? You have to work hard, and I believe there are rewards for that. In addition to that, I am different because I don't think that it's either all about save, 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 right? There is a healthy piece that you have to spend and enjoy. And what I find is a lot of financial advisors are only in the give me, give me, give me season. And I tell folks, life doesn't give you a do-over. There's not a reset button. And I love having conversations where I'm like, hey, remember when you said it's on your bucket list to go to every national park? Here's a book with all the national parks in it. And I want to hear about how many stamps you got in the next 6 months. So really encouraging people to spend where it's appropriate as well, and not just be all about the, in the future, later error.
I really appreciate that. I'm thinking about whenever we're trying to make some sort of a change, adjust a habit. I'm even thinking like eating healthier, exercising more. The most success comes from when it's in line with us. We can't totally cut ourselves off from those things that bring us joy, whether it be food, whether it be travel, whether it be whatever it is. And it sounds like you incorporate that into those relationships to make sure that you really understand what is motivating someone to keep them going when it's challenging. And that's another major theme from a lot of Dave Ramsey. It's like, for a period of time, and it seems like you even went through this, we can really buckle down. And if we have a really clear vision of where we're going, I think most of us can get through some tough times if it's temporary and we know there's going to be a payoff and a reward. And I love that you help people to celebrate when there are those successes. I truly do not believe we as human beings do that enough. So that's wonderful. I think you've really given people a good idea of what it's like to work with you. So if someone decides that they would like to do that, what is the best way for them to get in touch, learn more about you and your group?
Yeah, so great. They can go to edwardjones.com/Jessica-Tomac. They will find me there. They can find me on my LinkedIn page, also on my Facebook page. So you can connect through any of those. You can send me an email at jessica.tomac@edwardjones.com. All of those avenues are a great way to reach out.
Okay, wonderful. And one final thought that you would leave us with today, if the listeners were kind of left with one thing to be thinking about, what would that be?
I think there's always one thing we can be doing to enhance our lives that doesn't take a ton of effort, but they take some discipline. So really identifying what's your one thing you want to work on for the next month, 3 months, whatever that duration is. You don't eat an elephant all at once. You eat it one bite at a time. So what's your one thing?
I love that. Thank you so much for your time today, sharing more about what you do and how you work, the insight that you shared, and hopefully it's some solid takeaways for the listeners, but also that they have an option now to reach out. And you're geographically located in?
I'm in Michigan in the U.S.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Until next time, everybody.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.